I was born into collaboration. There's 6 Amini sisters, mom, psychoanalyst, dad. This is my immediate family at Thanksgiving. Just immediate family. For me, there's something deeply familiar about working with others to make something bigger than myself. I was number 5 out of the 6 daughters, so my whole life has been surrounded by this big family, by other people, by the flexibility it requires, by the sheer volume of love, food, and needs that it takes up, and by the power that each person brings to a collective. And then there were more people. For 2 years in college, I chose to live in a consensus-based co-op for 2 years. We would be independent, we would be interdependent. It was the dream. And then we would spend hours in these meetings finding consensus about something like cheese, organic or not. We also decided every quarter we would change rooms and roommates so that we could try out different living situations, all decided by consensus. We each had a weekly job, cooking, cleaning, making bread, again, decided by consensus. So by the end of this, I had really felt a lot of highs and lows too, of consensus, and then also gained some of my best friends. Sometimes I wanted to bang my head against a wall in those meetings. So, you'd be like, oh my God, this is going on forever. But then other times it was really exciting to see how the energy of 45 people could be powerful. Whether that was in planning a kayaking trip, planning an experimental meal, building a garden. There's that magic feeling, you know it, when your idea sparks fire with somebody else's idea, and then all of a sudden you both are feeling really alive. So then, after college, out in the real world, I wondered where else I might find collaboration. My good friend Rachel and I decided to start a zine. I was wondering, what could I make and who could I make it with? So with Rachel, we decided to make this zine, and it was called Before the Mortgage. It was about the time in life post-college, but pre-picket fence. And then it became a book. Before the Mortgage was awesome for me because it was this perfect conduit for me. It was a vehicle for me to talk to Rachel every day. Our friendship was made deeper by the project, and our project made deeper by our friendship. And then a seemingly ridiculous question led me to one of the most important collaborations of my life. My best friend Susan asked me, "Do you want to start a pep talk squad?" Of course I did. I would do anything with Susan. So neither of us knew where it would go, or if it would go anywhere at all. But we did know 2 things. One, that everybody needs somebody to cheer for them. And also, we knew that we trusted each other to try something goofy. Okay, also we knew that we needed to wear matching red sports jackets. So we took our typewriter and those matching red sports jackets out on the road. We went to parks, galleries, colleges, and we asked people, is there anything that you need pep or encouragement on? One of us would ask questions, and then the other one would type up the pep talk, and then we'd pull it out of the typewriter, and we'd read it to them, and then we'd cheer for them. Yay, Dina! So they turned out to be this really interesting way to get to the heart of things. It was really a way of asking people what they were vulnerable about. So it was both completely silly and completely deep. People shared their real vulnerabilities with us, and we gave them our full attention and energy. For the record, this was not something I would have done on my own. Susan was the one who was in the comedy sketch troupe in college. I was not. But the pep talks brought this new dimension to our friendship. We'd been friends, we'd been roommates, but now we were part of a 2-person team, the pep talk squad. It made me feel both nervous and expanded. For me, it was so much easier to take a risk with my best friend And for Susan, I was this solid sounding board, a question asker, and a conceptual counterpart. The magic of collaboration had hooked me. I've always loved making things, but more than that, I love making things with other people, of the way that you can end up making something that's beyond yourself. When I stop to think about it, I've been working my whole adult life in collaboration. Over the last 20 years, I've worked at HarperCollins, Dwell Magazine, and Chronicle Books. As an editor at Chronicle Books, I worked on over 500 projects. And then as the publishing director of our art, food, and lifestyle publishing, I've overseen thousands more. I've had the great privilege to work with high-profile authors, to develop best-selling gifts and games, to launch viral gifts, to work on sex books, to work on other illustrated books, to do a punch-out paper pug, to work on a game inspired by my pug, to work on a game called Donner Dinner Party. Each one of these projects was a collaboration between design, production, editorial, and the author or artist. For me, working on projects with people I love is what brings meaning to the projects, to the process, and to me. Okay, we're gonna go on a new age journey. You ready for this? You're ready. Oh, yes, I love it, thank you. Okay, so take a minute here, close your eyes. Imagine a glittering collaboration, one that filled you up, something you're proud of. It feels generative. One person offers something, another one takes that baton and runs with it. Another two people have a joint eureka moment. It feels energizing, fun, exciting. Okay, put that into your pocket for a moment. Now imagine your nightmare collaboration. One person criticizes everything. Another person can't let go of their idea and also wants all the credit. Another person never, ever stops talking. Why is it so bad? Okay, you can open your eyes now. We've all experienced both, right? Has collaboration become one of those kind of nice words like creativity or innovation that has lost some of its meaning? Well, there are two big barnacles that like to latch onto collaboration and make it lose its power. First, there's beige. You'll all know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's say we have a book cover, and I want it to be red, the designer wants it to be purple, and sales wants it to merchandise with holiday tables. We end up with a compromise solution. We end up with beige. Now, nobody's really offended by the beige, but nobody's really excited about it either. Nobody sets off on their journey to land at beige. Then there's the other problem we've all been a part of. It's the blah, blah, blah. This is when talking is confused with collaboration. You have the emotional expense, but without the upside. So sometimes it can take all different kinds of crazy shapes. It's when we've already have the answer for something, but then we're going through some like collaborative motions. It's when we go in circles. It's when we don't listen to each other. So in fact, once I started thinking about collaboration for this talk, I started getting really discouraged, thinking about all the blah, 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 and all the beige. I kind of went to a bleak place. I started thinking about all the ways collaboration had failed me, and then all the ways that I had failed it. Because, you know, it's not all fun and roses and teamwork makes the dream work. So, when does collaboration rise into the perfect bread? When does collaboration dissolve into compromise and defeat? And when do the ingredients fail to come together? So my question is, how do we come back to collaboration? How do we fall in love with it again? I'm here today to talk about how to reclaim collaboration. People like to get all hyped up over the solo creative genius or the one brilliant idea, but in my experience, creativity happens in the context of collaborative relationships. Also, there's research. A Stanford study from a few years back found that just the perception of working together on a task made participants persist longer, show greater engagement of the task, and report higher success. The authors of the study concluded that the key to productive collaboration is purpose. So the dream is when the project gains dimension. You might start off here, but then you end up here, or here, or here. There are three keys: purpose, trust, and time. Also, attention, openness, flexibility, knowing your strengths, knowing and leveraging the talent of your team, having tools for working together, generosity, gratitude, and fuel. My 15 years at Chronicle Books have given me lots of practice in working with others. Each and every project has taught me something, and of course, I'm still learning. Also, the Pep Talk Squad taught me a lot about collaboration as well. So let's go back to Susan for a minute. For many years, we gave pep talks and did other collaborations, and her work as an artist was taking off. She turned in the final pages to her book, Advice for My 80-Year-Old Self. She had quit her day job as a curator and started making art full-time. And then I received a phone call that changed my life forever. Susan had died, suddenly and unexpectedly. She was 38 years old and pregnant with twins who also died. It completely flattened me. Susan, who had seen me in the way that only the dearest of friends do, Susan, who could find humor anywhere, it just really didn't make any sense. But even in her death, Susan kept connecting me to her people, to all the people who loved her. Being witness to all this love gave me energy to do one thing I really know how to do, which is to form a team. So I assembled Team Susan Art. There's 2 curators, a gallerist, a writer, her husband, a collaborator, and me, to make decisions about the future of her work. A shared love of Susan and her work brought us together, and a shared love of Susan and her work holds us together still. Team Susan Art secured the pieces, some of Susan's pieces, for the Art on Market Poster Street series. It was all of a sudden an overwhelming responsibility for me to choose the pieces. Then one of my colleagues said, "You know, Christina, this is crazy to say, but it's like you and Susan are still collaborating." And then that was kind of an aha. It was, oh, something in me lifted. The weight of that responsibility transformed into the joy of collaboration. That maybe we could still be in conversation, but in a different way. So I chose the pieces because I knew Susan would trust me as an editor and as a friend. One of the pieces I chose was a quote from her mom, "Trick your brain and smile," her mom Lupe. And one of the pieces had a quote from my dad, Fari, "You can never catch up on having fun." And in one of the shelters on Market Street, they were back to back. That spring after Susan died was like the spring of Susan. There were art openings, receptions, book launches. And I realized I would always go to Susan's openings, whether she was there or not, because that's what you do for your friends and collaborators. You show up over and over again. If I could, I'd choose Susan over her art every day. But since that's not an option, I choose to continue our collaboration with purpose, trust, and time in a way that I never expected. And that's in part what brings me to talk with you all today, is what I've learned from Susan and the pep talks and our collaborations beyond about some of those key elements of purpose, trust, and time. So, purpose. Shared purpose is critical. It's the why. If we don't have shared purpose or find our way there somehow, really collaboration isn't the right tool in the toolkit, whether it's the why of why the pep talks or the why for why publish a book. As an example, last year I had the great honor of working with Congressman John Lewis to work on gift projects that celebrated his life and the civil rights movement. It was based on the March series, which is a best-selling graphic novel series. The books tell the story of the civil rights movement through John Lewis's personal story as one of the Big Six leaders. It was written by policy advisor Andrew Aden and illustrated by artist Nate Powell. So in one of our first phone calls with Andrew, the writer, as he was walking the halls of Congress, he told us something important. He said that when they were working on the books, they had conversations with their editors because their editors had wanted to simplify the stories, to simplify the narratives a bit. But then he and John Lewis explained to the editors that that wasn't really what was the point here. And as an editor, I totally understood what the editors were talking about. There's so many people and places in the stories, it's a little hard to track. But as they explained to their editors, the number of people and places is kind of the point. So they had to go back to their purpose, to celebrate the life of John Lewis and the civil rights movement, to figure out, to revisit that purpose so that then they could figure out the how of how they were going to tell their stories. The next stop on our journey here is trust. This is a big word. So what does trust look like? Trust looks like doing what you say you're going to do in big things and small things. And also, to me, trust looks like a notepad. Okay, so one publishing meeting, some of my colleagues and I were talking about how people just love gold things. Gold foil, gold stamping, gilding, people love gold. It's really true. So then we were like, but what's the goldest gold thing that we could make? A gold bar notepad, of course. So I couldn't tell you who asked the question or who answered it or how we got there, but I do know that it wouldn't have come to be without all the people who were in the room for that conversation. And then at the first sales meeting for this project, for the gold bar notepad, the sales director was like, but where are we going to sell this? Her worst fear was that we were going to end up with a warehouse full of unsellable gold bars. Don't worry, that didn't happen. People did want it, and we did sell them, which then led us to the next question. What else do people want? Chocolate, coffee. This spawned a whole line of publishing that we now call Things That Look Like Other Things. So then, as we were brainstorming for our next project, one day I found that the designer had left some Post-it notes wrapped in vellum at my desk. And I was like, what is this? Oh, it's butter. A pad of butter. Get it? Admittedly, I thought this was really pretty weird. I mean, people I know, they want gold and they want chocolate, but butter? I decided to set down my doubts and to trust her instincts, to trust the butter. So it was important here that I set down my doubts when I brought it to acquisition. We published our first pad of butter. This is now one of those projects that's an emblem of Chronicle Books and the wonderful weirdness. And to me, it's also an emblem of trusting a teammate's intuition. Because it's not the most best-sellingest project of all time, but it is one that people point to of the way the Chronicle sees things differently. It's kind of one that surprises people about what a publisher might make. I mean, who else would do this? And it came to be because of trust in the team. Because we decided to trust the butter. Just gonna put that right there. As all of you in this room know, creative work requires an amount of risk-taking and optimism and endurance to keep on going. And it benefits from a team that has built up collaborative capital, that trusts each other to problem solve, to listen to each other, to bring out the best in each other's work. Finally, time. Collaboration takes time. If you are actually going to listen, to explore, to try out all those new ideas, it takes time. Collaboration is not necessarily the most efficient tool in the toolkit. It takes time to figure out what your strengths are and how they can be leveraged with your teammates' strengths. So one artist that taught me a lot about time is Lee Redmond. When I first met Lee, she was sitting at a shop in the Mission writing tiny little letters at a tiny little, it was an American Girl doll desk, for a project called World's Smallest Post Service. So then we published a version of it. And then we went and we published more things with Lee. We published a game, a journal, scratch-off note cards. Working with Lee was not and is not fast. It's thoughtful, it's considered, it's exploratory, it requires lots of chai dates. But Lee has taught me the importance of time on a project, whether it's both that it's the individual project takes time and that a generative, collaborative relationship can take time to build. Because it's not always about the first idea or the first project. Because if you're lucky, you get to work with your team on many projects. One day, Lee brought in a prototype for this project called Letters to My Future Self. And fast forward to the present, and now we have over 20 different titles in the series. Letters to my friend, letters to my grandchild, to my mom, to everybody, and 2.5 million copies in print. I know. I love the story of Chronicle and Lee because it's a story about the power of long-term collaboration, that we trusted the spark of working and growing together. And while those first projects did fine, it was the 5th project that captured our audience's attention. Not every collaboration may have commercial success, but the magic of collaboration is that it can lead to a generative relationship. So let's say you have purpose, trust, and time, and you want to collaborate. Here's what I invite you to do: to reject beige and the blah, 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 and to reclaim collaboration for yourself, to find the joy in it, to think about when collaboration works for you, and also when it doesn't. How do you collaborate best? My father, the psychoanalyst, wrote a book in collaboration with his colleagues called A General Theory of Love. For many Saturday mornings, they would come to our house, and my mom would make breakfast, and then they would talk about how our psychology affects our biology, and our biology affects our psychology. So literally, caring for another person changes who we are. They wrote, "The prevailing myth is this: relationships are 50-50. As if when one person does a nice thing for the other, he is entitled to an equally pleasing benefit. The sooner, the better. An authentic relationship is mutual regulation, wherein each person meets the needs of the other. Such a relationship is not 50-50. It's 100-100. Each takes perpetual care of the other, and both thrive. For those who attain it, the benefits of deep attachment are powerful. Regulated people feel whole, centered, alive. Because relationships are mutual, partners share a single fate: one process, one dance, one story." And then, being in the notoriously white industry of publishing, I can't help but thinking about who we invite into that process and into that party. Verna Myers, a well-known diversity practitioner, once noted that diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. An inclusive party would be one in which everyone invited feels at home, where everyone feels comfortable in the room, where everyone can dance without feeling self-conscious. So thinking about the work that we all do and how we do it and who we work with is important and imperative in the creative work that we do. For me, as an editor at Chronicle Books, as a steward of my dear friend Susan O'Malley's work, as a professional collaborator, I felt it deep in my bones. The point of all of these projects is the relationships, the love you put out there and the love you receive back. That collaborative relationships can lead us to new places and unexpected outcomes. I'm still receiving gifts from my dear friend Susan in the form of new friendships, joyful art openings, and purpose. And every day in my work at Chronicle Books, I benefit by being open to the gifts of partnership in creative work. So here's what I ask of you. What is one way you will fuel your collaboration? How do you want to show up for yourself and your team? How can you trust the butter in your life or add glitter? How do you reclaim collaboration? So here we are at the beginning of this conference. It's like the beginning of a meal. We're here for nourishment, for conversation, and possibility. In my family, at the beginning of a meal, we have a blessing that we say. So we all sit around the table and hold hands, and it goes like this. Thank you for our family, our friends, and our food. May the love in our hearts pass through these hands to you and you and you, and then you look at each of the people who are around the table. So just for kicks, we're going to do it now. You're going to do it. And so you're going to stand up. Thanks. And we're going to do the you and yous for everybody. How about in your row? Okay? So you can hold hands with your friends here. Okay, are you ready for this? Because we're at the beginning of the conference, to create something greater than any one of us could have done on our own for this, opportunity to do something goofy. Okay, ready? Thank you for our family, our friends, and our food. May the love in our hearts pass through these hands to you and 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 you. Thank you.